Millions of dollars trading this
So
morning.
this is a huge factor, right? Because gap is how people decide the value of a company and what a company's financials are. Because it's literally the way that you do accounting. That's massive.
That I think Chinese companies that are not compliant, they're going to get delisted. I think this new sheriff at the SEC isn't going to mess around. And I think this is important to continue the pressure on China to come to the table.
Yeah, it's a great point because I asked Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent this very question yesterday. I mean, look, Kevin, we talk about this all the time. We've got all these companies, Chinese companies, trading on U.S. exchanges. Some of them have already been sanctioned. Some of them have already been put on certain lists, you know, blacklists or whatever in the U.S., and they're still trading on U.S. exchanges and, you know, enabling or allowing U.S. investors to buy these stocks and, in effect, fund the expansion of our #1 adversary. So I'm wondering how far they're going to go. Do we have that Scott Bessent soundbite? Because I went and I asked the Treasury Secretary about that, and you know, to see how tough they can be, because that's an economic lever that they've been afraid, people have been afraid to pull. I don't know about this administration, but most administrations are afraid to pull that lever. China will be very upset. Here's my conversation yesterday with Scott Bessent, on Wednesday, when I asked him this very question. Watch this, Kevin. How would you assess the Chinese economy right now?
They were in a recession/depression due to a real estate collapse that had a real estate bubble that is deflating. That had been going on for years. And the economy was in terrible shape. So, again, they're going to go from bad to terrible. And you know, that which is unsustainable will be unsustainable.
Yeah.
The other thing that the Chinese should not do is try to devalue their way out of this, because, you know, back to our European friends, our Japanese allies.
Smart. Yeah, I think a lot of people respect him.
Our Korean allies, the Vietnamese. If China starts devaluing, then that is a tax on the rest of the world, and everyone will have to keep raising their tariffs to offset the devaluation.
Yeah.
So I would urge them not to do that and to come to the table.
How far are you willing to take this in terms of this soft war with China? We've got Chinese stocks.
I think they're going to go all the way. Honestly, I feel like Trump is going to go all the way with this. Because, like, again, like, you know, there's, like, the Chinese culture of, like, saving face, etc. people talk about. Well, I feel like Trump is kind of the same way. I don't think he's going to back down with this at all. I voted for this, yeah, and I think also there's a huge contingency of his base that realize that, yeah, this is something that is, like, basically backing down from this is pretty much agreeing to continue being taken advantage of. I think that's the way that a lot of people see it.
Trading on U.S. exchanges, you know, U.S. investors are buying those stocks, and that's helping China fund its military. Let's face it. Are you willing to go that far to remove Chinese stocks from U.S. exchanges?
Well, Maria, I think everything's on the table. We are putting in process
they would 100% do that.
For,
by the way,
high-value security-related goods. We are talking about the export capital controls in terms of, you know, as you said, a blacklist of things that U.S. Whether pension funds, endowments, investors should not be investing in to fund the Chinese military machine. So, but that'll be President Trump's decision.
So what do you think about that, Kevin? I'm so glad you brought up the confirmation of Paul Atkins. That is a key point. I agree with you.
Well, here's my challenge to the administration. I'm an investor. I take companies public on NASDAQ and New York Stock Exchange. I pay millions of dollars each year in compliance. I have no choice but to be compliant and transparent and abide by GAAP. And right beside me, issuing shares without any guidance at all, are Chinese companies. I'm competing.
I don't see how somebody can look at that and see that it's not rigged. I don't. I feel like that's so obviously fucking rigged. Really? It's not fair. Yeah, it's the same thing I said about, like, the hiring illegal immigrants. If you have a company that's hiring illegal immigrants and a company that's not, all other things equal, the company that's hiring the illegals is going to be able to sell at a lower price and make more money than you. That's not fair. Yeah, it's bad faith arguments. It's obviously rigged and bullshit. Yeah, of course. Rigged or designed? Probably a little bit of both, let's be honest.
For that dollar. I'm investing in our markets and being compliant, and my Chinese competitor, same bank I'm using, is going to institutions the same day on a roadshow and raising money for what's called a shadow share. It's not even a real share. They don't even have any rights. And they're taking my dollar. They're taking my dollar. So I'm putting up my hand saying, wait a minute, just follow the law. Delist these companies, make them be compliant like I am.
Yeah, I don't think this is that unreasonable. Like, I don't, am I crazy for thinking this? That it's not that unreasonable to want them to come to the table a little bit and make sure that we can come have an agreement on this. Like, this isn't insane. I mean, I'm not asking that they like they give up everything and they have to like give us all their money or anything. This isn't anything that's crazy. Just play by the fucking rules.
I speak on behalf of every American investor. Enough is enough. And I don't know why this is going on. I'm only asking the new chair, uphold the law. Just uphold the law. That's it. So I think
know why it's going on. I know why it's going on. It's going on because Wall Street firms make money on it. Okay? That's why it's going on. Because they want to make money selling these stocks to the public. And they want to make money raising money for Chinese companies. What else?
I think that's definitely it. I think there's a lot of messaging. This is, I feel like the fact that a lot of, there's like a lot of Democrats that are like falling off on the same side as China. I think that like you always have like the traditional everyday, you know, like America bad, like rhetoric, right? There's definitely that. But there's also another really big component of it is that I think that the Democratic Party has been completely taken over by large interests and like large money interests. And like the party works in the best interest of these massive companies under the, you know, illusion of it working for minorities or underrepresented groups or developing countries. But the fact is that these companies are playing these people for fools and making them think that they're voting for like helping this country, but what they're really voting for is new forms of slave labor and new ways for these companies to increase their profits. That's what I think has happened, and I think that they've completely infiltrated and they've turned a lot of these economic policies that are actually detrimental to Americans into these like weird ethnic, like social issues that has convinced people to vote against their best interests. And I think that's what's happened. And it's been happening, I think, for 15 years.
What is it going on? That's how it's going on Wall Street.
Listen, I appreciate that, Maria, and I use those banks, and many of those people I call friends, but they can't.
Keep in mind, by the way, everybody does this. It's not like Democrats have a monopoly on this, but I think right now it's become more and more evident. And I think that also what made it extremely evident is during COVID and BLM, when every single company sided with them and every single company tried to enact unilateral like messaging that said, you know, like you have to do X, Y, and Z for COVID, like, you know, like BLM is good, like all of this stuff. They all said the exact same stuff. I think the reason why is because they're trying to take advantage of these people that are emotionally driven by causes that are sometimes good causes, but take advantage of those causes and then utilize those groups of people to vote for things that are actually financially beneficial for the companies. That's what I think's happening.
Can't do this anymore because they're going to have to also abide by the law. All of this softness, I don't know why Gensler didn't pursue this. My estimation as of this morning, somewhere between 500 to 700 billion dollars worth of market capitalization that should be delisted, taken off the exchanges.
Wow.
Further pressure on the Chinese to come to the table.
Yeah, so Chinese Communist Party leadership want to get tough with President Trump. I wouldn't recommend it, okay? There's a lot to lose here for the Chinese leadership, a lot to lose. Meanwhile, let's talk about TikTok. The deal for TikTok to divest U.S. operations to an American company, currently on hold, China pausing the process in response to the U.S. tariffs. President Trump told reporters yesterday the deal is still on the table, though. Watch.
Where does the TikTok deal stand, given what we've seen, you know, the tariffs to China?
Well, it's moving along, but obviously I would say right now China's not exactly thrilled about signing it. We have a deal with some very good people, some very rich companies that would do a great job with it, but we're going to have to wait to see what.
I find there's also a bit of a self-report that TikTok, there was a lot of messaging about how TikTok wasn't owned by China. But if TikTok actually wasn't owned by China, why is China exercising oversight on the sale of TikTok?